Hey, I'm Nick Kalikas. Welcome to the show where you get first look at the latest odds before they hit the sports books.
And I'm Miguel Itturate.
This is the place for a unique look at MMA from a gambler's perspective.
And this is MMAOddsbreaker. Welcome to the show. Nick Kalikas alongside Miguel Itturate.
On today's show, we're going to get things started by looking back at a couple of recent UFC events. UFC 152, Jon Jones' latest defense, and the last field card with Miocic and Struve.
And on today's Oddsbreaker segment, I'll be joined by pro gambler Luca and the editor-in-chief of Heavy MMA, Matt Brown. Both guys will help me break 4 original odds that have not hit the sportsbooks yet.
Well, Nick, let's get things started by talking a little UFC. UFC 152, Jon Jones versus Vitor Belfort. Tough title defense. What'd you think?
Yeah, I thought it was a great fight. It was a tough title defense. In the first few minutes, especially when Vitor Belfort clinched onto that armbar, I was a little surprised. I'm sure all the fans out there that were betting on the juice, on that high, ridiculous kind of juice that Jon Jones was a 10-1 favorite almost, they were freaking out too. So that armbar was close, but Jones toughed it out. So that's what I was impressed with. He got put in a bad spot, and he managed to be tough enough and had the heart to just pull through, and then he ended up dominating the fight. A lot of people are saying it was one of his more impressive performances. I disagree, but I do think it was impressive enough. So to me, Jon Jones' stock keeps on rising.
The great thing about the fight was one of the first times we've seen Jon Jones face adversity in a fight. And he came through it and he won. I think what this sets up is a lot of Jon Jones as 10-1 favorite in his future defenses, whether it be Henderson, Machida maybe a little less, but not much. And obviously, if they throw Chael Sonnen in there, it'll be at least a 10-1, I'm thinking. So Jon Jones, dominant champion. Let's get right into the co-main event that day. The UFC crowned their 125-pound flyweight champion, Demetrious Johnson against Joseph Benavidez. A 5-round war. Demetrious pulled it out. Good fight. What'd you think?
Man, I was impressed with Mighty Mouse. How could you not be? I mean, he was facing adversity the last 2 fights with being the underdog, basically. He was a decent dog against Joseph Benavidez, but in his fight with Ian McCall, he was a slight underdog, but the betting public was really going crazy and betting Ian McCall. So he doesn't get a lot of respect, at least recently, from the betting public. So I was glad he ended up pulling off the fight because the guy's so talented, man. We get a chance to see such a well-rounded, smart fighter in Demetrious Johnson. And don't take anything away from Joseph Benavidez. I think it was the right call. He lost by split decision. I don't think it was a split decision. I really think that arguably Demetrious Johnson won 4 out of the 5 rounds. But they were competitive rounds, and I know Joseph Benavidez will be bounced back. So I'm looking forward to seeing him rematch in the future, maybe after a couple more wins for Benavidez, he climbs back up and gets another shot.
Solid fight. You're going to see great technique at flyweights. I think it's a good job all around.
Okay, let's move on to the recent UFC Fuel TV 5 card. Our good friend Stipe Miocic unfortunately suffered his first career loss to the hands of Stefan Struve. Now, Struve deserves a lot of credit for that fight. He had to weather an early storm, a bad round 1 for him. Stipe looked great in round 1, but he started fading, I think, a little bit towards the end of round 1. In round 2, it was definitely Stefan Struve's round. He came out, got the TKO stoppage. I'm bummed out a little bit because I'm such a big Stipe fan. I wanted him to see his undefeated streak stay alive, but I know he'll bounce back better than ever. Hopefully he'll improve on some of those areas that he needs to, and he's got a ton of potential. But Struve, on the other hand, man, the guy just keeps on improving. Very impressive performance, and I'm looking forward to seeing Struve's next fight too.
Yeah, it was a great fight. Miocic did look great in the first round. Still shows a world of potential. You learn from losses sometimes. Hopefully this is the case with him. Struve, people are talking about him being in the top 5, and it just may be. The thing about Struve is he's very complete. He's good on the ground. He's good standing up. And the other thing is you can't prepare for a guy 7 feet tall. Just you don't have 7 feet tall sparring partners. If he learns to protect his chin, which is still a little suspect, Miocic is a big banger. He's been in with a couple of bangers and stayed safe. If he continues to be able to protect his chin using his height, his reach, he can be very dangerous in that division.
Okay, let's quickly touch base on UFC 153, give kind of a quick preview. There are 3 fights available right now at the sportsbooks, but up next we're going to break the remaining 3 fights on the pay-per-view part of 153 on the odds breaker segment, so stay tuned for that. But let's get started first with the main event, Miguel. Anderson Silva versus Stephan Bonnar. I opened the line around 13-1 favorite for Anderson Silva. At DSI right now you're seeing it at minus 1250, the comeback on Bonnar plus 750. Outrageous line. Does Bonnar have an outside chance?
Look, Bonner's a guy that until the fight's over, he's going to be trying. And I really think that's the best thing you could say about him here, because I think his effort will not be enough against Anderson Silva. He's going to have trouble standing on the ground. He's probably going to be on his back, hurt, bleeding, and that sort of thing. I mean, it doesn't look good for Stephan, other than the fact that until the bell rings, he will continue to try to beat you. So there is that sort of shred of danger, but that's really stretching it because I just don't see many ways for him to win.
Yeah, it's hard to bet the line where it is now. I'm sure a lot of people are going to throw Anderson Silva in several parlays. I think it's a fight you just kind of stay away from. Stephan's best chance in this fight is obviously getting the fight to the floor and trying to follow the same pattern that Sonnen did and had success against, but he's not the wrestler Sonnen was. So it's going to be interesting if it does hit the floor, but I mean, Anderson Silva, he's pound for pound the best for a reason. So tough line to bet. I would basically avoid it and just stay away from that fight. But let's move on to another fight from the card. It's John Fitch versus Eric Silva. Now this fight is intriguing big time. I opened John Fitch to the slight favorite. Right now you're seeing the odds from DSI minus 120 for John Fitch, minus 110 for Eric Silva. Bookmaker and some other spots have it around a pick. A few places have Silva the slight favorite. So you're seeing it close to a pick 'em. A lot of public coming in on Eric Silva right now. They think that John Fitch is basically done.
I mean, between 2 and 3 years ago, John Fitch was cracking top 10 pound-for-pound lists. He was clearly the #1 contender to St. Pierre, and he was at the top of the welterweight division. His star has faded. And to be honest with you, I do have to see something from John Fitch in this fight. Based on his last performance, he came out and got blitzed early, and we really need a performance out of John Fitch, something tough, something that shows us grit for him to start being in the conversation again. And he's got a tough opponent here. It's not going to be an easy task doing that with Eric Silva.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the more, I look at this fight closer, and the more stuff I dig up and information I get, I'm starting to like Eric Silva a lot more too. I think, unfortunately for Fitch, it might end up with another knockout loss. I hope not, because I want to see Fitch come out and prove me wrong and get the W here. And we should see flashes of, what he's all about. I mean, a dominant wrestler, a dominant grinder. He's got a good BJJ game. His striking's not bad, but he doesn't want to tangle with Eric Silva too much on the feet, obviously, in this fight. So the public might be on the right track. I'm sure we're going to see some backers coming back in on John Fitch. It is an interesting fight, but like I said, I'm kind of leaning a little bit more towards Eric Silva right now, but we'll see how it all plays out. Let's move on to the other fight. At welterweight, Demian Maia takes on Rick Story. Now, another great fight, another pick'em type of fight. Right now, you're seeing the line from BetDSI at minus 125 for Maia. The comeback, minus 105 on Rick Story. Quick thoughts?
Maia's last outing was a wash. I still want to see him at 170. I want to see him, in the second round, see what he did to his cardio. He looked good at the weigh-ins in terms of, he didn't look lethargic or anything like that. And he looked decent in what little bit of fight we got. But at 170, he's still big. He's still an older guy to make the weight cut. Going down in weight becomes tougher as you age, and he's in his mid-30s. I am going to wait to see the weigh-ins, and I may stay away from this just to see if I'm going to bet Demian Maia in the future or if he's a shot fighter.
Yeah, I totally agree with you have to say. And right now I'm kind of leaning towards Rick Story because of a lot of what you just said there. A lot to prove still. I know that fight against Kim coming down to 170, it just happened so fast. We didn't get to really see much from there. I mean, Rick Story's a tough dude. He's going to bring it. Obviously, Demian Maia has a strong advantage on the ground with his grappling. So Story has to definitely be careful if it does hit the floor, which he likes. He's a wrestler, strong wrestler. He's a strong grappler as well. His key is going to be to get the knockout here against Demian Maia. So I could see this fight right now going either way, but I am leaning a little bit more towards Rick Story. But again, another fight, we'll have to see how it plays out here down the road. All right, let's get started with today's Oddsbreaker segment. Let me introduce both of our guests. First, welcome back one of MMAOddsbreaker.com's very own pro gambler, Luca Fury. Luca, welcome back to the show.
Hey, glad to be here again. Thanks for having me on.
Also back with us today is the editor-in-chief of HeavyMMA.com and also the executive producer of Fight Day, Matt Brown. Matt, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me back, guys.
All right, now both of you guys are very familiar with how the show works, been on several times, but for those out there that do not, let me quickly explain. We have a sponsor, betdsi.eu. They've donated a 5K bankroll to both guys. Now, they get to select from 4 fights that I'm going to break odds on here shortly. The first 3 fights of the bankroll does apply, the 4th fight it does not apply. We're going to get started first with UFC 153. Actually, guys, we're going to fill out the rest of the main card odds that are not out there for 153, some of the bigger fights that are out there right now. So let's get started. The event takes place in Brazil, October 13th. The first fight is a great one. Fabio Maldonado is taking on Glover Teixeira. A big fight, Fabio stepping in, replacing Rampage Jackson. Guys, we're going to get started with Luca first. I'm going to open up Glover Teixeira, minus 325. The comeback on Maldonado is going to be plus 245. Luca, give me your take, give me your bet.
Well, my first thought is this is a real tough fight to bet. I mean, Glover Teixeira is being so overrated in the public's eye right now. Yeah, he looked great against Kyle Kingsbury, and I thought he would beat Kingsbury, even bet him there, so I kind of expected it, but I did not expect the public to think he's like the next champion now. I mean, I just don't understand it. It's Kyle Kingsbury. Who's Kyle Kingsbury really beat here? I mean, yeah, he should win this fight. He has the more varied tools on the feet. Maldonado is a very good boxer, but Teixeira is better at range. He has kicks and stuff. But what really makes me think Glover Teixeira is going to win this fight, though, is his ground game is definitely superior, and if he chooses to use it, which he often does, I definitely think he'll probably be able to control Maldonado and at least win a decision on the ground, if not get a tap out there. So I do like Glover to win the fight, but man, this is a real tough line to bet when he's that steep of a favorite. Problem is there's not really any value in Maldonado either, so for the sake of the show, I have to go with Teixeira, but when the actual fight comes around, I'm not going to bet Teixeira unless his line is lower.
All right, so Luca Fury is going to take Glover cautiously at minus 325. It's going to be 1625 to win 500. Now let's throw it over to Matt Brown. Matt, what do you think about this fight?
Yeah, I mean, when this fight was Rampage, I had Teixeira, and then now that it's Maldonado, I'm on Teixeira even more. I mean, you look at Maldonado in this. He's lost his last 2 fights to Kyle Kingsbury and Igor Pekrajc, and like you just mentioned, Teixeira's last win was against Kyle Kingsbury, so they do have a common opponent, and they have different results. You know, Glover hasn't lost since March of 2006. That's 17 fights in a row. So any way you look at it, the guy's been able to put together an impressive win streak. You know, the way I look at it, I actually do find him to be one of the hottest prospects in the UFC light heavyweight division. He's got great hands. He's got a good submission game. You know, I can see why people are turning down fights with this guy left and right. I think he's just going to be far too much for Fabio Maldonado, and kind of as Luca said, I think he'll probably keep it on the feet for a little bit, but ultimately try to get the fight to the ground and probably get a submission win here. So my bet's going to be on Glover. I just don't see too many ways, or actually a way at all, that Maldonado is able to take this fight.
Okay, so Matt Brown also going to go with Glover minus 325, 1625 to win $500. So both of our experts do agree that Glover does move on and keeps the momentum rolling at UFC 153. All right, guys, sticking to UFC 153, another big fight. Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira steps in and takes on David Herman. Now, we're going to start off with Matt this time. Matt, a legend in the sport. Nogueira has several advantages in this fight. I have to open him a favorite. He's going to open up minus 260. The comeback on Dave Herman is going to be plus 200. Give me your take and give me your bet.
So, you know, my pick in this fight, I'm going to go with Dave Herman, and my pick has less to do with Herman as a fighter as it does really my question marks for Big Nog. I mean, yeah, Herman's coming off a couple of TKO losses to Roy Nelson and Stefan Struve, but he does have some power himself. 15 of his 21 wins have come by knockout himself. But, you know, like I said, this pick is more about where is Nog. You know, he's lost 3 of his last 5 fights. All 3 of those losses have been stoppages. He's been out of action since December of 2011 after that nasty arm break from Frank Mir. 36 years old, 42 pro fights. A lot of those have been wars. I mean, I think he's older than that 36 actually is as far as fighter wear on his body. And I just don't know where he's at, not only physically, but mentally in this whole deal. And, you know, I don't like question marks, and especially getting 2-1 on a guy like Dave Herman that does have a little bit of power himself. And I think that he could get an upset here if Nog isn't 100%. And I just don't know where he's at. So I think Herman's the bet there.
Okay, so Matt is going to go with the plus money, plus 200. It's going to be $500 to win $1,000 on Dave Herman, the underdog. A lot of good points made by Matt. Let's throw it over to Luca. What do you think about this fight, Luca?
Well, I agree with a lot of what Matt said. You know, I definitely also have some questions about Nogueira. He definitely seems to be more injury prone lately, which is a concern. He is coming off of a layoff, although he has looked better in recent fights. He did get that win over Brendan Schaub. He also was doing well against Frank Mir until he ended up getting submitted after a costly mistake. The problem with Dave Herman, though, is, I mean, we know the book on this guy. He's so talented. He has so much potential, but he doesn't show up for fights and really try. He doesn't take training very seriously. He doesn't take the fights very seriously. You'll hear in between rounds his corner is pleading him to try and follow the game plan and not just go in there and mess around. He always gasses after about 4 or 5 minutes. I mean, if he had cardio for 5 rounds and actually had motivation to go in there and give it a 100% effort, yeah, I'd like his chances as an underdog against Nogueira. But the problem with Dave Herman is I just can't rely on the guy versus anyone. Nogueira's a dangerous opponent for him. Even if Nogueira isn't 100%, he's dangerous. Now, granted, yes, I would prefer Nogueira to be 100% if I'm laying, some juice on him like the line is right now. But even still, I can never lay my money on Dave Herman. He's a guy who I actually like to bet against. So this is going to be another one of those situations where I have to go with Nogueira. I think probably it's competitive early on, and then some point in the second or third round, Dave Herman turns into his usual tired, lazy self, and Nogueira probably lands a good shot on his relatively weak chin and puts Dave Herman out.
All right, so it looks like Luca Fury is going to go the other way. He's going to take Nogueira, the legend, minus 260. It's going to be $1,300 to win $500. A lot of good points made by both of our guys, but they do split on this fight, so tread cautiously as we move into 153 for Nogueira versus Herman. All right, sticking to UFC 153, a light heavyweight rematch between Phil Davis and Wagner Prado. Now, guys, last time I opened this line, it was Phil Davis, a 7-1 favorite. It got bet up to close to 10-1 at some spots. But you know what? After what we got to see from the first minute or two, I cannot open the line that high. I'm going to readjust. We're going to start off with Luca first. Luca, I'm going to open up Phil Davis minus 350, so half the price. The comeback on Prado is going to be plus 270. Give me your thoughts and give me your bet.
This is a little bit kind of a tricky matchup to break down here. We saw in the first fight, Phil Davis didn't look particularly good, but one thing to note is he didn't really try to go for a takedown, so we didn't get to see how the wrestling lines up, and that's really the key in this fight. If Phil Davis wins, we know it's not probably going to be on the feet. It's going to be that he gets takedowns and controls Prado on the ground. Now, Phil Davis still should be able to do that. He should be able to dominate Prado on the ground. Fortunately, we didn't get to see them even grapple in the first fight at all. All we saw was Phil Davis kind of not fighting very smart, which definitely is a concern. The only way that Prado can win this fight basically is to land a big punch on Phil and put him out. And Phil was giving Prado every opportunity to do that before he ended up poking him in the eye and the fight was declared a no contest. Now, there definitely is a concern going in that Phil Davis might not fight the smartest, but even still, you got to go with Phil Davis here. He really should be able to get the takedowns and dominate Prado on the ground here. So I have to go with him. I mean, I think if you're going to bet him, you got to parlay him with someone. It's not something I'm super confident in, but I do still think that him even at around minus 350, there is value in that line. I mean, you're getting half the price from the first fight, and really what's changed? All we saw was that Phil Davis didn't fight smart. We didn't see that it's a bad style matchup or anything for him. So I still like Phil Davis even at a steep price like this.
Okay, so Luca Fury is going to lay $1,750 to win $500 on Phil Davis at minus 350. Let's throw it over to Matt Brown. Matt, what do you think about this fight?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with Luca. I mean, getting half the price, I think this is a great bet on this card. I mean, you look down and, Wagner Prado's getting a little bit of love because you look at the record, 8-0 with 7 finishes and all that. But the telling tale actually is of those eight victories, his opponents have a combined record of 14-23. He's only fought 2 guys with a winning record in his whole career. So he's been beating up on scrubs down in Brazil. Granted, Phil didn't shoot, but I mean, we only saw a minute and 30 some odd seconds of that first round. I think Phil gets this ground to the fight, smashes him, maybe even submits him, but I can't see anything but a steamroll by Phil Davis in this fight.
All right, so Matt Brown also going to lay the juice at $1,750 to win $500 on Phil Davis over Wagner Prado. Both of our experts agreed that Phil Davis does get redemption and moves on at UFC 153. All right, time for today's bonus fight. A big fight at light heavyweight, not officially announced, but it looks like it is going to take place between Lyoto Machida and Dan Henderson. Guys, I'm really looking forward to this fight. We're going to start off with Matt first. I'm going to open up Machida as a 2-1 favorite, minus 220. The comeback on Dan Henderson is going to be about plus 170. Give me your take, give me your bet.
Yeah, I thought long and hard about this one before I finally ended up going with Machida. Age has never really come into play with me when talking about Dan Henderson. He always seems to just defy the odds. He was like the youngest 40-year-old ever, but this last injury to him kind of got me thinking, when you take a look at him, 42 years old, 37 pro fights, and that last fight with Shogun is the type of fight that can change a career. I mean, even for a younger guy, but Dan being 42 now, I mean, that was just a 5-round utter slugfest war, and some guys just don't come out of those, doing very well. Machida's style, very elusive, in and out. He likes to fight at a distance, and that just doesn't favor Dan's. strategy of late, which is essentially land a giant right hand. I mean, he hasn't been to decision since like January of 2009. So like going to decision doesn't really happen. The only way I see him winning the fight is landing a big right hand. And Lyoto Machida is just not that type of guy. So, I see Machida getting in, keeping the distance, popping him a couple times and popping back outside and probably winning a decision that the fans aren't going to be really super happy about. But, Machida knows how important this fight is for his career. And I think he fights really smart and outpoints Dan Henderson.
All right, so Matt's going to go with Lyoto Machida. It's going to be 1,100 to win 500 at minus 220 odds. Let's throw over to Luca. Luca, what do you think about this fight?
This is a fight that I've been kind of going back and forth on, not on who I think will win, but whether or not I think that Lyoto Machida is worth a bet. Ultimately, I do think he is, but the current price is about the maximum I would bet him at. I mean, yeah, he should win this fight, but my concern is, of course, Dan Henderson's right hand. Now, I'm kind of in the belief that if you think a guy's only chance is to land, one big punch, and other than that, he's completely outmatched, well, you should probably bet against him. But in this case, Dan Henderson's right hand is a very dangerous weapon, as we all know. And Lyoto Machida actually has been clipped a few times with overhand rights and gotten hurt. His knockout loss to Shogun was an overhand punch. His submission loss to John Jones was started off by getting dropped by an overhand punch. So you definitely have some concerns about that. And also, Lyoto Machida's style is he's willing to get hit sometimes to land a punch of his own. I know he's so elusive and stuff, but you'll see a lot of his punches come after a guy starts the motion to throw a punch at him, and he quickly hits him with a straight right before their punch lands. Well, if he does that against Dan Henderson and gets hit with the right in return, he's probably not going to be standing afterwards, and he could be knocked down, the fight could be over, and, who knows what happens there. So there's definitely a lot of concerns here, but ultimately Lyoto Machida should win this fight. He's a better overall striker, and Dan Henderson, he is on this great run in terms of wins, but in a lot of his fights, he hasn't looked all that great, even though he has been winning. Another thing is this fight might be 5 rounds whenever they do eventually announce it. If it is a main event, it will be 5 rounds. And I like Machida more in that case because Dan Henderson, we know, can gas after about 2 rounds usually. So Lyoto Machida might be able to finish him in that case. So depending if the fight's 3 or 5 rounds, I definitely like Machida more or less. But even if it's 3 at the worst, I still like Machida to win the fight. I think he is worth a bet at his current price, but basically no higher than that.
All right, so Luca Fury also going to lay the juice. Minus 220, it's going to be 1,100 to win $500 on Lyoto Machida. So both of our experts do agree. Machida's the side over Dan Henderson. Stay tuned for what Miguel and I have to say during our odds adjustment segment. All right, guys, great stuff on today's Oddsbreaker segment. I want to take a minute before we let you go and let you guys plug your sites or anything you have coming up. Let's start off with Luca first. Luca, anything you'd like to say?
Hey, thanks for having me on again. If people who are watching this want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Gambling Fury. Also check out MMAOddsbreaker.com for my vlogs and also the podcast that I do with Nick, the MMA Oddscast.
All right, and Matt, thanks again for joining us today. Anything you'd like to say before we let you go?
Yeah, if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at MattHeavyMMA. You can always stop by HeavyMMA.com for any of the good stuff we've got going over there in the MMA world. And then also, before all the UFC pay-per-views, we do a pre-show called Fight Day. We have great hosts, great interviews, and great things going on. So you can get ready for all the UFC pay-per-views by stopping by and checking out Fight Day.
All right, guys, excellent work, and we'll see you down the road.
Welcome back to the show. Another great MMA Oddsbreaker segment. Big thanks to our special guests, Luca Fury and Matt Brown. Nick, you're going to go ahead and adjust the odds based on their picks. Why don't you explain to people what this process is about?
Typically, when you do see a fresh line at a sports book, you'll see some movement early on when a max bet or two does come in. So we're going to take that same principle, same philosophy, and put it into play here during our odds adjustment segment. Starting off with fight 1, it was Glover Teixeira versus Fabio Maldonado. Now, I opened the line, Glover minus 325. The comeback on Maldonado was plus 245. Both of our experts, Luca and Matt, did come in on the favorite here, so I'm going to have to adjust the line. It's the new price when it does hit BetDSI and some of the other books is going to be minus 345. The comeback's going to be plus 265. Let's get Miguel's quick thoughts.
It's an interesting fight, and, two Brazilian, non-Brazilian in Brazil makes for an interesting fight. And what I like about it is Glover's got a lot of fire behind him. He's got a lot of hype. A lot of people didn't seem to want to fight him, and now, his status has been elevated. And here comes a guy like Fabio Maldonado. Not many people, he's not high on everybody's radar, and he wants to fight. And that makes it interesting, I think. So this is one I'm going to sit back and watch.
Yeah, I was impressed. I mean, what a stud Fabio is coming into play and taking this fight on short notice, because a lot of people, like you said, turned down the fight. Even Rashad Evans turned down this fight on short notice. So a hard fight to take, and Fabio stepped up. I think on the feet, he knows something. He knows he can compete and hang with Glover on the feet, no doubt, and I believe that too. But the difference that comes into play here, I think, is the ground game. So that's why you're going to see Glover as a decent favorite, and that's why he deserves to be a decent favorite, because the all-around skill set should be better. I can't bet this fight. I think it's fine where the line is right now. There might be a little bit of value on Fabio. Maybe we're underestimating him, overlooking him, because he does have a couple losses in a row. So this is a hard fight for me to bet, but I am going to probably pick Glover too. Let's move on to the next fight. Nogueira, Big Nog versus Dave Herman. Now this is an interesting fight. Nogueira stepped up to the plate and decided to come in and make himself available for a fight. Dave Herman accepted. And here we go. Now, both guys split on this fight, so I'm going to leave it alone. It's going to hit the sports books with Nogueira coming in at -260. The comeback on Herman is going to be +200. When it does hit DSI, give me Miguel. Give me your quick thoughts.
You know, I like Dave Herman a lot. However, in this particular case, I think he's outclassed. I really think Nogueira, even though he's on the B side of his career and he's older, his just skill package is just, you know, superior in every single way. He's put a lot into his striking. I think he's a solid striker. I think his boxing is very good. On the ground, he's very, very good, obviously. And I think Big Nog takes this.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. That's why he's coming in the favor. But at the same time, man, Dave Herman has a shot, especially if it stays standing. I know Nogueira is by far the more technical of the two. I mean, especially boxing, he's going to have a big edge there. But at the same time, I think that Dave Herman's a little bit more active. He does have that knockout power. And if it stays standing, man, at this point, this stage in their career, I would actually almost favor Dave Herman. Again, he's not going to have the technical edge, but as far as power and just output, I think he does have the advantage there. So I wouldn't touch this fight, and there's a lot of concerns with Nogueira. That arm injury was nasty, I mean, to the hands of Frank Mir. So you have, that comes into play as well. I do think that Nogueira is probably going to come away with a win. He's going to be motivated in his home country, but another tough fight to bet, man. I would probably pass. Almost tempted to take in Dave Herman myself, but that's the way it's going to be right now. Let's move on to the third fight. Another fight from UFC 153 between Prado and Phil Davis. Now, Phil Davis, a lot of hype behind him. He lost some of that hype when he did suffer his loss to Rashad Evans, but at the same time, based on the last line that it did open, it was close to 7-1, almost close 10-1 or over in some spots. This is the rematch. I opened it half the price that I did last time, and both guys did come in. Luca and Matt took the favorite here on Phil Davis, so I'm going to have to adjust the price. It's going to hit the sportsbooks now at -370. The comeback is going to be +290 on Prado. You think it's worth the play here?
You know, I mean, the bottom line is if you're the type of bettor that likes to look for an underdog, this may be a spot. Their first outing was a no contest, that's clear. But what did we see in that no contest? I mean, did you really see Prado do a little bit of damage, you know, maybe test Phil Davis a little bit? I thought you could see the fight going that way, and it looked like it potentially could. Now, granted, Phil Davis is a stud, and, you know, you fight through adversity, and that's what I like to see in a fighter as well. But to say Prado has no chance, I can see why this line is half what it used to be, and there may still be value in there if you were watching that fight closely.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not sure how the public's going to react in this fight. And from what we did see in the first fight, like you said, it wasn't much, but Phil Davis did not shoot for a takedown. I mean, he didn't. His fight IQ was not there for that fight. Now, I know this time he's going to look for that takedown a lot faster, but I think Prado's wrestling, from what I've heard, it's legit. It's not on the same ballpark that Phil Davis is. That's why you're seeing him still a decent favorite here. But I think if Phil Davis obviously can't get the fight to the floor, Prado's going to have his way with him and can get the knockout win. So for me, from an odds perspective, I'm pretty sure the public's going to agree with both guys, and you're going to see the line climb up to over 400, maybe 500 or beyond. But for the sports books, it's a little bit safer getting action originally on that side. I'm going to stay away from this fight as well. I don't think it's worth laying the juice because, like I said, what we did get to see in that minute and a half, even though it wasn't a lot, Phil Davis did not fight smart. Prado showed he had a little bit of power, and it was a little interesting matchup. So I think we're going to be able to control the action a little bit better. So that's why we're opening it this way. I'd rather get hit on the favorite instead of the underdog right away, and that's what you're going to see. Okay, let's move on to the bonus fight, a huge fight at light heavyweight, Machida versus Henderson. Man, I hope this fight does take place. Now, a quick note, if it does not take place, then the sports books, all wagers will be canceled, voided, so no harm, no foul. The fight has not been officially announced, but from all accounts, we are hearing that there's a good chance it is going to take place. Now, if it does take place, I open up the line, Machida -220, the comeback on Henderson +170. A little bit of surprise because both guys did come in on the favorite. They took Machida -220. I'm going to have to adjust the price a little bit because I do think the betting public's going to maybe lean a little bit more towards that way. So Machida's going to hit the sports books, bet DSI at -240. The comeback's going to be +180 on Henderson. Let's get Miguel's quick thoughts.
It's a good fight. I want to see the fight. You know, it's an upper echelon fight with two, you know, superstars, basically. I'm not a fan of the matchmaking, and I don't know if I would have made this fight in terms of you've got Jon Jones there. You've got Jon Jones as a dominant champion. You've got trouble getting opponents for him, and these were supposed to be the next 2 opponents for him. And now you're going to eliminate one because the loser is probably going to have to, battle his way back. And it leaves your championship picture a little bit hazy in a division where you're looking for challenges for the guy. So I'm not sure if this isn't a little vindictive to put these guys together because of, fights got turned down and this sort of thing. I'm not sure it best serves the organization, but it's a great fight. I'm going to watch it as a fan, and I do think Machida's going to win. I think Henderson, 41, coming off the injury. Always been a stud. Very hard to bet against Dan because he's just so hard-nosed and comes at you. But I think Machida's the right kind of guy to fight him. Very patient, a counter fighter, and it's a bad matchup for Dan.
So all 3 of you guys do agree that Machida is going to defeat Henderson. I'm going to have to go with you guys as well. I do think Henderson does have that puncher chance with that right hand. And the public is going to think so too. Now, right now, I set the line where I'm pretty sure we're going to get 2-way action, maybe originally when it does first hit the sports books. But as we get closer to fight day, I do have a feeling that the line's going to drop in. There's going to be a lot of right-hand Dan Henderson knockout backers coming in and taking the dog price. So we'll probably see line maybe dip under 2-1. And then maybe some sharp action will come back and bring it back up. So we might see a little bit of movement, but I think it's a fair spot to open at right now. And I do expect Machida. He's just a better overall fighter, the more technical fighter. He's got the better cardio, so it should be his fight to win or lose.
Well, that's it for another episode of MMA Oddsbreakers. You can look for the lines that Nick broke right here on the show to start popping up at the sport books throughout the coming week. And a big special thanks, as always, to Luca Fury and Matt Brown, our special guests on the MMA Oddsbreaker segment. They did a great job.
Also, make sure you guys check out our website, MMAOddsbreaker.com, and follow us on Twitter at MMAOddsbreaker. For Miguel Itturate, I'm Nick Kalikas saying until next time, enjoy the fights.